right, so let's get into this. First and foremost, my face is not appearing because my camera has decided not to work, but it's not the end of the world, and it is just one aspect of this face. Thus, we shall continue. You'll notice I have Photoshop up. Please also do the same if you're going to follow along here. Of course, you can always pause and come back later, etc. But open it up if you want to follow along in more or less real time to the time that is this video, which is not real. The video time. What I have open now is project details and rubrics tab. I wanted to just dive into O1B a little bit and just clarify it is due pretty much in early. If you go to the assignment section, you can actually find out it should be due for you. O1B. Whoops. February 11th. So yeah, just about the 5th week, 4th or 5th week, and this is to assist in your mood and the style of your game and the like. Being that we are indeed a class of 2D animation and asset production focused on the design and visual style of things, we should definitely be very much into the mood board and concept art aspect of our work. And in O1A, you had kind of found some imagery and all that, right? 15 images, and I'll just I would put them together, but in concert with like some color palettes, or maybe you replace some of the images, right, etc. What we're gonna do together is, you can go in here to O1B. I'm just going through my own route as the professor here, different route than the student view, but I opened up the tab for us. You'll see this drive link. You'll need 5 sketch iterations on player avatar, full color concept art of player avatar, then you can read the rest. Keep in mind that you may want to make this very much refined, right? Perhaps to the point where you would actually use these assets in your game, right? It's okay to go all out in this regard, even though they are just sketches, right? If you do go all out, it makes your work a heck of a lot easier moving forward once we get into actual game asset development and implementation, right? Your implementation will be easier because the assets will already have been produced at this point. So keep that in mind. It's just an option. Typically I'll just do sketches, but some people like to sketch, not present the sketch, and then give the actual like final rendition, if you will, of their drawing or painting to be used then as a sort of sprite, which we'll go over what sprites are eventually. But I think at this point you probably know what a sprite is, but it's good to sort of look into all these aspects and dive a little deeper. So yeah, follow the template just like with O1A. Use that template as a guide. Remember to consider font style, background color, texture, especially for O1B. Remember I had pointed that out during class. Yeah, and if you wanted to take it to the next level, really hone in on that concept art. See what you can do to refine the platform, the middle ground, the background, right? And the background's that final layer all the way in the back. These are usually a little bit more desaturated to, give depth, there's a little bit less richness, right? So just be aware that if you want to actually mimic how the eye sees, it is very important that you do it properly. And one way is to either make it a little bit less resolute, a little less clear, perhaps a little bit less quality even, but all in all, I would actually maintain the quality in my own work. This is what I do: is I maintain the quality, but I just simplify the asset, right? Simplify the asset meaning maybe just stick to more basic shape work or outline, right? Or just kind of dull everything down. That is up to you, right? This is your world. I want you to build it the way you want to build it, within the means of the template, of course. All right, let's dig into Photoshop now. So the class activity that that I had in mind here, boop, there we go. Class activity. Actually, I'm going to open up this for everyone eventually as well. Probably do that next week. Actually, I'll keep it as is. Should start pretty soon though. So go to content for our class activity week 2. And this activity is simply to get you a little bit more informed on Photoshop, allow you to discover a little bit more in regards to tools, best practices, etc. Feel free to also use Illustrator if you're familiar with Illustrator, and we will actually be doing a little bit of Illustrator anyhow, like designing our own logo for one. For the mood board, we're going to get 6 images, and it has to describe me. However, I'm going to describe my friend, my dear friend, Travis Stoder. First and foremost, you'll have to find the picture of this individual, Travis Stoder. R.I.T. There he is. Okay? Look at that guy. Amazing man. Amazing man. Fantastic. Love it. So I see in his picture he has some lovely animals on his shirt. Perhaps he's a man of nature, right? I believe he is. He actually has a degree in some kind of horticulture, believe it or not. So, horticulture. And this process I'm going through with you, it's actually to help you with your 01B project milestone. I want you to notice my process, right? I'm looking at something that I'm designing around, and I'm pulling aspects of that out and then interpreting it, giving it expression. In this case, maybe he's a man of nature. Therefore, I'm going to look for some nature goodies. And his personality is very much like the roots of a mushroom. Very well connected. If we go into images here, and feel free to take images from wherever as long as you cite them to some degree, like a link perhaps. Because you're not using these for a final project, so it's okay to be a little bit loose, but we still want to give credit where credit is due, right? I think for him, this would be lovely. He's kind of a scientist at heart as well, so this is kind of scientist-like. And we'll just make a folder. I'll go into my 119 stuff, and I'll just say folder and demo 119 124, January 24th. Open that up, and we'll say garden science, because it's kind of a lab of growth in there. What other images might we like? Well, let's look back at Travis. So moving up Travis's neck here, we see he has very nice complexion. And perhaps we would want to go forth and find a color of sorts that embodies that complexion. So, warm, light skin. There we are. Then we can actually just look for many things here. Perhaps skin tone or just a similar color. something maybe that blends many things together, such as this. A little bit of nature, maybe something like this, right? And that warmth I'll probably carry on into the overall mood or tone of the mood board. So I want my end project, in this case, just a abstract representation of him. I want it to be, I want it to embody his full personality to some extent, right? Travis colors. And you'll notice in your O1B that you'll have to find colors as well. And if you happen to get lucky and you get a set of colors all in one, then you are, well, you're just lucky. And that's fantastic. You should definitely embody that, embrace that, and move forward. So that's been saved. We'll go in here, look at the lovely hair a little bit, you know, like a short, godlike haircut. He is, you know, of the British descent, so maybe a little Viking in there, but maybe not a whole lot. Perhaps he's from more of a proper place. Majestic hair. When we go to find something like this, you want to keep in mind the colors that you are using and the sort of hair that that's being utilized. Perhaps something like this could be interesting. This lovely guinea pig here. Fantastic. Look at that. I think some of these colors will translate over quite well. Save image. It's the wrong image. Well, yeah, we can definitely upload that. Guinea pig. Okay. And there we are. And just continue this until you get a solid 6 images. I'll let you squeeze some color in there as well. Looks like we have some astuteness to take care of. So what images would represent smarts and class? Images for smart. Travis likes dark things, but given our color palette, I think it's more wise to get something perhaps a little bit more green, right? There we are. Little miniature version. Can never go wrong with that. Mini Travis. Enter. Now, based on his personality, he also has a lot to say about technology and code and all that other jazz. So let's see what happens. Technology. Images. This is gonna be hilarious. Okay, this is fascinating. And much like the network of his mind, perhaps we can find something that resonates with our color palette as well. Let's bring that color palette up while we're looking. And this will help in many ways. Here we are. So if that is our color palette, then what shall we choose? And then I'd say we'd probably want to choose something like a maybe something like this, right? I think that carries over fairly well, or even that. think this will probably be our best bet right here. Save image. Chemistry. Network. Turn. This is my understanding. I need one more. Now, he's also a magical human being, and he does enjoy tarot card images. And what do you know? It actually goes with the color palette. That is just fantastic. Tarot Travis. And we're good to go. We have everything we need here. So we'll create a new file, and this time, unlike our demo prior, we're just going to dive into some of these aspects that are perhaps a little bit new to you. Maybe not too new, but a little bit. Try to keep your mood board, I would say, square for this particular exercise, right? This is an activity, and I want to have you submit this to the to actually the challenge discussion, or no, to the what are you making section of the Discord, or what are y'all making, I believe it's what it's called. 1024 or whatever fits well for you will suffice. All right, just select that. If you don't see it, you can always just go in here, type 1024. 72 resolution's fine, 16 is acceptable. I am not worried about it. Transparent background, always good, but if it's not, at least give it some kind of color eventually, right? So Travis mood board. That's my title. Obviously, it's a class activity, so we don't have to be official about naming conventions. And you'll just give it some time to load up and populate here. And there we are. I'll actually take this, I'll make it larger. Right now I'm holding down Alt and I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in to my canvas. If you wanted to actually kind of like move around, you can hold down, or rather press H on your keyboard, and you can pan across the canvas with this hand tool. If you want to get back to the move tool, you can actually use V on the keyboard, and that'll pop you right back to move. And remember, all these tools have little videos attached to them if you are confused or curious about what to do. Now, let's start by doing a couple things. One being getting these images in, right? So let's import those in. I'm going to go ahead and grab, I'll just say open, and I'll grab my assets from the desktop and 119 stuff. Wherever you have it, go there. Demo 119, 124. I'm going to grab every single image here. Hold down Shift, select, press open, and they should populate all along here. Sometimes you get these little things where it's like it's not the right kind of document. And there's some other anomalies, right? That's all right. Usually, if it isn't the right document, you can actually like choose what to do with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like we have 5 here, which is a little bit short for the class activity. But again, this is just me showing you my sort of pipeline or workflow for, making a mood board. I find the images. Well, first you discern what you're making, and in our case, a game, right? And just pop this over. You can actually move an image into your canvas by simply going into the move tool, right? Pressing V perhaps, and then just dragging it into wherever you want. In this case, this canvas, this project. And then I can close out, and I can hit, once I get to a good spot where I can actually navigate around here and find the corner. Typically I'll find the corner, then I'll press Control T, and then I'll just scale down. I'll just drag, click and drag, because we're making a mood board. We don't want it to take up everything. Something like that. Don't be afraid to use your guides, right? Alright, so while I was away, I actually went ahead and grabbed some. I just had paused the video so I could grab some other goodies here. Because of the files, it didn't work. If you ever come into contact with a web MP file, essentially you can just kind of edit that photo slightly in the photo app for Windows, or you can find another image that is JPEG or etc. I went ahead and just edited the guinea pig. The guinea pig did not like being put into Photoshop. So what happened here? Looks like our image actually moved a little bit. Control T again. Let's just get this back to where we want it. I must not have pressed Enter. That's fine. Just bring that down, and you don't have to hold down Shift to get the uniformity of scale. It's all good. Now you can put snaps on by going to View and Snap. It might help you kind of find the right spot, right? Don't be afraid to also use your ruler. I remember I was getting into that. In this case, we have a 1024 canvas, so if we look at the little x-axis there, we'll go up to 500 because that's a half, right? And we'll go up to 12. It's okay if it's not precise. We can always use the pink guide that populates as a snap. I'm going to go ahead and just snap that in there. I'll press Enter. And let's get some other images in here. This one in particular is of interest to me. It says it's a different size, pretty much, which is totally fine. What I want to do is I want to actually find an image. It's just Travis's image, just to work around. If I actually go in here, go to his file, and I right click, I should be able to save this. Looks like a PHP file, so that's not going to work out for us, but you can use photographs that you have and just kind of circle around that, right? So in this case, I will actually just take a clip. I'm using the snipping tool, which you should all have, and I'll just snip them right out of there, like so, like that. Save as and stuff in here, and try a photo. Go. Exit out of there. And I'll import it into Photoshop now. I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'll go to Open. And I'll go down until I find what I need. Open. Bring that out. Make sure I have the Move tool selected and drag inward. We'll say yes to that. And looks like I'm centered. It just snapped in place there. Just want to make sure I'm actually centered. There we are. That's centered through and through now. And I want to build my mood board around that, because that's the subject, right? And that's something I'd like you all to do as well. So we'll go in here and, or at least try to do that while you're creating. I think it's very helpful. I'm going to place auto select on so I can actually select things while I'm moving around instead of using the layers for now. I'm going to press Control T. Remember that scaling up from a smaller image isn't always the best idea, right? So if you do it, don't, make sure you're sort of judicious about it. Don't go crazy. I'll bring this forward. okay to overlap things at times. And then we'll bring that down and into place. Control T again. And we'll push that forward. Press enter when you're done. Moving on to other goodies here, we can see that we have our little color palette. Let's get that in place. Just take that with our move tool, we'll drag it into place and say yes to that dialog box for the different size. And I'll place this one underneath that layer so I don't have to worry too much about organizing in a very strict fashion. Do want to bring it to the center a little bit though, just to frame in this guy here. It looks like we have our tarot cards, but they have come out quite stretched. This is actually quite interesting. If you are willing to resize something, you can always do that. We can actually unlock our layer, and we can then, I would just make a copy of this layer actually. So we'll drag that layer down into the plus box. We'll get rid of that. And just good practice, just so you have things later. And I'll press Control T. And what I'll do is I'll actually hold down Shift. I'm just going to bring these in until they're about right. Let's say that's about right. And then I'll take this and I'll basically drag it into here. Oops. Press yes to proceed into what you need. Exit this. Yes. Exit. I do not want to save. And no. There we go. So yeah, a little bit blurry, right? Well, let's dull that down a little bit. Just bring it down and plop it into place. Make sure that it's underneath and off to the side a bit. Also, if you ever want to change the order, you can always put this below everything by just simply dragging, and there we are. And you can use arrow keys to get a little bit more precise in regards to your placement. Always good to use equidistant margins whenever you're able to. That's kind of a standard rule in design. In this case, I have that in place. So same size here, and same size along here. Moving on to mini trav here. I'll press yes. Get the mini trav in place. And things are changing now. Now I have to, maybe just have two sides that are equidistant. That's also an okay design rule. It's not the end of the world. If you wanted to get wild though, you could actually just kind of, we'll keep it like that actually. I think that's good. As for the extra 2 items on our list, a good way to go about it would be to open up guinea pig and moon. I'm just pressing down control, so I select both of them. They'll both populate. Bring this one out, and I'll actually go into the moon for a little while here. I want to make sure that I get fairly close. That's actually a that's way too low res for me. I'm going to get out of that. And we'll just stick with the guinea pig just so we don't have to finagle too long here. Put that into place. And all I want with the guinea pig is actually the hair. So I can exit out of that. I can put that there. And strike a balance in that way. And so, and Control T. And so in many ways this is, yeah, this is sort of the ideal way to get a mood board going. Actually, I'll put that over the top of that. And that. There we go. Nice. And notice how I have this and this as an equal space, right? So this, between this image and Travis, or rather, and this sort of chemistry and this botanical image, there's an equidistant space of Travis's photo, right? And then of the class chalkboard photo. Equal space. Do need to bring that in just so it doesn't overlap into the other. Good. So it's fairly balanced. You know, nothing too crazy here. It's a very basic mood board, but it gets the point across, right? Botanical professor loves tarot, and he has lovely hair, right? And he's a man of nature, of botanicals, of biology, right? And he likes code. He likes math to some extent, right? It's a whole Travis extravaganza right here. Lovely, lovely human being. So then you would just save it as whatever you'd like. In this case, I'll probably save it as a JPEG should be fine because it's well, we don't need any transparency. If you needed transparency, it'd be a different story. Well, I'm gonna call it Travis board. Press cancel. Go to File, Export actually. And now we'll export it as a PNG. So you should get a dialog box. It looks sort of like this. Bring that up. You can do JPEG, GIF, PNG, right? Let's just export it as a JPEG. All these settings are pretty much well on par. So we'll export that into our appropriate folder of our choosing here. Save, and voila. So you would hand this into what y'all making in the Discord, and that'll help me to understand that you are following along and that you are playing in Photoshop, right? So at this point, I want you to open up a new file now, because I want you to design your logo, right, for your game. And if you don't want to design your logo for your game, design something. It could really be anything. It could be a total piece of garbage. This is just practice for getting something you made in Photoshop into Illustrator, but it's also practice for making PNGs into sprites to some extent, right? It's like the beginning process of that, where I just show you how to make sure you have an alpha when you export the image. Very basic stuff, but you know, a lot of this isn't explained to everybody in each class, so it's good to kind of review this. Whoops, I don't need to be in there. And just make sure that we're all on the same page so that when we do go to do our walk cycles for our characters or our villains, right, that we'll be all right and we have everything in order. You can actually open up a 1024 by 1024. I'll press create. Here we are. And I want you to grab the brush. I know I went over the brush a little bit with you all. If you have a stylus, that's fantastic. You can actually use opacity with pressure or flow with pressure. I would use opacity, and just make sure that always use pressure for sizes on as well if you want that sort of stroke to be, you know, found and identified. You can use the soft if you'd like for pressure size, but hard round is probably best. If you're using pressure, then hard round pressure size or soft round pressure size. I don't have my stylus with me, so I'm just going to use the hard round, and I'll just play around and make some things. Now, if you don't see a transparent canvas, it could just be that you have, when you went to go make a new file, you didn't hit transparent. So just make sure it's transparent. Otherwise, you won't actually make basically the starting of a sprite. You won't make that, you won't have that alpha in play, and we need that. So make sure that's there, right? And that's in the new document settings, preset details. I'll close that. Holding down Alt and zooming in. If you notice though, I can also kind of grab colors if I hold down Alt with this eyedropper. So that's a thing. I'm going to use a sort of deep blue. So I just selected this and it gave me my little pop-up here for messing around my color, because I have a different setup here on this laptop than what you saw during class. So my colors are just in a different place and they pop up as a box. So if I go in here and I just brush down to maybe 25 pixels, I can then just meander around. Perhaps we make a funky worm creature of sorts. And what I'll do is I'll pause the video so you're not bored, and I'll finish my drawing. So now I'll just continue on by giving it giving it a little bit of a face here. So I'll probably pick another color, something like this. I'll go ahead and give it some eyes of sorts. Click once again, maybe some darker blue there. Along with a little bit of a red smile. So, goofy, creepy worm guy, ready to take over the world. Yes, and bear with me, I'm using a mouse, so not my best work, of course, but it doesn't have to be. Always save your work, save as, and in this case I'm going to save on my computer within that demo folder. Save it as a .psd so I can always go back to it and edit again. Enter. You may get a dialog box that says this, just press OK. So now how do we export something like this? Like, you know, you make this drawing or this logo or whatever it is. You know, how do we export that? Well, one thing you can do is you can actually go into something like File, and you can generate, but I would just go to export. You'd export it as a .png. Except I'd like to show you something. Something that'll actually just make your work look a little bit better. And I think it's a fun technique for anybody starting out. It just gives your work a little bit more character, and that is the gradient tool. Fantastic. So what we're gonna do with that? So you'll notice in games like Journey, right, when you have a lot of that sort of fade going on in the sky and in the mountain. A lot of that is sort of similar to what the gradient tool does, but it really brings a lot of universal style to the work. You know, we could go on and on about that. One simple trick by using the marquee tool, let's say you want to grab all of this, you know, this entire worm here, but you know, you're afraid to use what we would call the object selection tool because you're not sure how accurate it is. And we could even try that right now and see how it does. Maybe it will be accurate, right? So if you just drag out, you just select it and drag out from left to bottom right and let it compute. And it'll try to tackle everything, but there's usually anomalies like this. So if we go to select and deselect, or Control D, up to you, Let's try it the trick way. So this little trick that I do is I'll make sure I'm on the layer, I'll grab the marquee rectangle tool and I'll just drag it out. And then I'll simply place it where I want, because you can actually move that selection while you're still there. But then I switch tools to the move tool, for example, and I just do that. All of a sudden it's outlined everything, right? Like that is ideal. Now this doesn't work with all drawings or paintings, right? Like you have to have a blank space behind it, or you just have to make sure that your layer is very much isolated, right? By hiding all the other layers. And then you can drag it around. There's no paint left behind. Sometimes with the object selection tools, you'll get some thin paint lines that get left behind. So there you go. There's like a little simple trick to quickly grabbing everything in more of an accurate way than the object tool, which is supposed to do exactly what this is, essentially. So a little workaround there for you all. But back to the gradient tool. It makes gradients. It blends from one color or texture to another. At present, I do not have a dialog box for this. And I want a dialog box mainly due to the fact that I want to be able to manipulate the colors that are within it. I actually can get there by selecting this rectangle here. I'll go to this drop down. Move that over, and you'll see a cascade of different colors: blues, purples, and pinks, and the like. You can also customize. You can select these little squares here, then select the color and pick what you like. In that case, I'll probably go a little bit more blue on that end, and in here I'll probably go a little bit warmer towards the orange side. Now in addition, you can also change the gradient type to more of a noise type. It's a little bit different texture. And of course you could always use a mask to elaborate on even more texture types. What I have up here is actually the opacity of the color below. Have that also gradate however I wish. So in this case I want the full color, so I'll actually bring that all the way back. This is the location of when gradation begins, or rather when the middle of it is, right? I like it somewhere around there. It's quite nice. And right here I have an opacity of 88% when I select that opacity block. I'll press OK because I'm satisfied. And really all that's left is, what side do I want it to be lighter? In this case, I think from right to left might be advantageous or may look good. But the problem is now it's all over everything and I have no means of erasing it because it's all on one layer. So Control Z to undo that. And let's go down to that little plus sign, make another layer, and we'll call it gradient, right? Now once we're in there, we'll take our crosshairs and populate on top here. And don't ever be afraid to also alter the opacity of that gradation. Now the eraser tool, just so you can get a nice look at how to properly utilize some of these tools. Let's go in there and give it a nice erase around the eyes or wherever you wish. Just make sure to clean up what you're doing. Eraser tool is good for that. That. And we can save our work. as a .psd. But I want to now export because I think I'm ready for that. So we'll go to export. We will export to, or rather as, a PNG because I want the RGB plus alpha. Note that there is a white matte around everything, and that is due to the fact that we are in a JPEG format. We need it to be PNG. We're going to preserve that transparency, that alpha, so that we can then use it and export it to something like Illustrator, right? So press save. And we can also use it as a sprite. Let's go back to our stuff here, go into our folder, desktop, 119 stuff, and our little demo. There's our worm guy. Double click that. And you'll notice transparency. Beautiful. It has worked. Lovely. I mean, you could do a lot with this now. You could actually animate it pretty easily, making like a puppet warp tools type animation, but we'll dig into that stuff later. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. We can now go into Illustrator. We'll open up Illustrator. It's opening up on another screen at the moment, so we'll just wait a second. I'll drag it over. There we are. Now let's say we wanted to vectorize this so that we can, and I say vectorize meaning basically turn it into a vector so that we can then adjust the drawing itself. Go to create new. We know that our worm guy was 1024 by 1024-ish, so let's go into pixels and we'll make a custom canvas for this. Press enter. It'll populate. And there we are. And I'll get more into Illustrator things as we move along in class, but I'm just going to have you follow along with some bare bones basics on just importing an image into Illustrator, and then we'll coalesce our learnings later into something a little bit more advanced. For now, go to open, and we will go to desktop, 119 stuff. This is where my stuff is. We'll grab our creation, our PNG, right? Open it up. We'll do a similar action that we did before with Photoshop, where we just put this to the side, and then we grabbed our creation and plopped it down into our scene or our canvas, our desired canvas. Exit out of that. Bring this up. Making sure that I have that transparency. I'm just taking it over to the side to double check. Now, once you get this in the scene, there's something that you can actually take a peek at. It's called image trace. And this is how we would start transitioning our bitmap image into a vector image or path. So if we hit image trace, we get a bunch of options here. You can go with whatever you want, really. If you go with default, we'll probably get something strange like that. High fidelity photo, you'll at least, it'll still embody the characteristics, but you'll see that it has sectioned out some colors and the like. All of which, and I'm actually holding down Alt and I'm middle mouse clicking to pan across here. See how it's grabbing the canvas. So in order to sort of make this a little better and clean it up a little bit, because it is, it's all separated into like individual sort of sections now. way to make this a little better is to just increase the paths first and foremost, maybe to 70%. It'll load up something. Every time you make a change, it'll load up a little bit more. Increasing the colors does help as well. Something that 95 could assist in sort of reshaping the item a bit. More corners can be good, but less corners can be good too. It all depends on what you're working on. Let's see, this will probably give us our most drastic change, or not. So we do less corners, let's see what happens. If we do a low amount of pads, let's see what happens. That seemed to actually help out a little bit. High corners again. Notice that it's less steppy around here. Definitely don't want noise. We can go ahead and adjust maybe, if we bring that to 100%, let's see what happens. Yeah, big change here. Okay. Bring that back down to 40%. Let's see if we got any of those strange, get those anomalies to go away. Maybe less corners altogether, just get them out of the way permanently here. Not seeing much change. Suffice it to say, you can actually see the paths adjusting down here as you move forward. Stacked paths are good. Cutout paths are good. Let's go ahead and move on to expanding. When we expand something, it actually becomes paths, right? That's the beauty of it. You'll see that sort of gradation happening here with the paths themselves. And you can actually go and do some more editing if you needed to, right? Now, one thing that we've lost is our transparency, right? But we've gained paths that we can now manipulate and smooth out, etc. What I just did is I pressed A on the keyboard. I fluctuate from V, which is a sort of selection tool, of course, and then direct selection tool, which is direct for each item at a time. And I have a couple of these white areas I'm just going to dig out and get rid of. Yeah, there's a lot you can do. And at present, it does look worse, right? The way that it's kind of created this strange bumpiness to the edges and all that, but it actually has made it highly manipulatable, or rather I can manipulate it more now due to the fact that there's no pixels. This is pixel free. It is now a vector path, so I can do a little bit more with adjustments in this regard. Like I could actually make an adjustment if I press A on the keyboard. I get that direct selection tool. I can actually adjust these. I can move this out of the way, delete that, but I can also adjust the curves, right? And you'll remember we learned about this in class via the slides of week 2.1. Now, what I would need you to do for the game, and what I would prefer, is that, maybe you don't use vectors, right? I mean, you can if you want to be super, super clean about things, but perhaps use it for your logo, right? Use it for your title, your logo, just so it's nice and clean, and you don't have any weird anomalies and things, and the edges are nice and sharp, right? all of this can be adjusted, and these are things we'll go over eventually, but I just wanted to show you the general way of starting this process and getting your created image or drawing or painting into Illustrator to work with alongside not only RGB but Alpha. So with that, I bid you farewell, and I hope that this was helpful in at least just getting you to the starting point of, hey, this is Illustrator, you can mess around with the paths now and basically customize something you've already customized. An added layer of benefit to your work. Hang in there, I will be back on Wednesday of next week, the third week. So I will be back from MIT the third week. If you have any other questions or would like to talk to me, we can schedule a time. I am still available. I just happen to be remote. So keep that in mind, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week.